Hi, everybody. Hello,
God,
YouTube. We're live.
hey, everybody. We are live.
Welcome back to Delusional Confidence. My name is Emily. I am at
And
Emily's Awakening on Instagram. This is Ida, also known
yes,
as the Trinity Therapist on Instagram. We're also both individually on YouTube, and we will link all of our stuff about where to find us in the show notes here. We record these podcasts live on YouTube, so some of you may be joining this live recording. And we also post our audio episodes on all podcast platforms like a regular podcast as well.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have anything to add, Ide?
As always, whenever you finish, I'm like, do I have anything to add? Not really. Let's get into that today.
What?
And I love that. No, I was like, I wonder what we're gonna chat about today. And I love the fact that we've maintained that and not like go planning what it is that we're gonna talk about and just like,
Yeah, I don't think that we could ever. I mean, who knows? I can't speak for the future, but I feel like we're both I couldn't imagine planning what I'm going to talk about. Because whenever I've done that on my podcast, it's like very unnatural and choppy and there's no flow.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Okay. Well, how are things going in your realm, Ide, with your business and the projects that you're working on? You opened something new, right?
Yes, I did. It's just like a hype group, I just wanted to bring, people together that I just hype up every day. So that's what it is. It's like this free group that I've created just because I really love doing that. So I was like, oh, you know what? Even if once a day I jump in and I do that, it fulfilled me. So why not? Yeah. So that's what made me create it. But yeah, other than that, everything is going well on my end. Obviously, every day is different. Every day comes with like a different challenge. And also like, opportunities. So yeah, it's just a matter of like harnessing the opportunities and moving through the challenges for me, really.
Yeah. It's like that's how it feels for me. It's like you just at a certain point I've learned to just take what's coming. Like it's important to have goals. I guess. I don't know. I almost feel like our goals even I guess they are important and I just go way overboard with like this is what I want, this is when I want it, and that I would just say at least this year that hasn't helped me. Like I almost feel like the more goal oriented I've gotten, the more I've been frustrated because it's just clear to me that like at least with the way that I manifest and the way that I create in my life, things come really at their own time. And the only thing that I've noticed has helped me get what I want in some form is like really showing up, really believing in my stuff, and like taking action. Like that has created what I want to some degree.
Mm-hmm.
But it never almost never shows up specifically as I want it to show up when I want to show up. So what's your relationship to goals? This is kind of a cool area we're getting into here.
Yeah, I kind of feel like in future I'll write a book called Goals Don't Work for Me. This is something that I've, spoken about for the last, maybe 6-7 years, because there was a time I was walking with my friends in the city and one of my friends' partner notified me because we were having a conversation and he's like, you should set goals, blah, blah. And I'm like, you know what, goals don't work for me. And then he's like, hey, that would be a good book title. And I was like, yeah, I'm keeping that. So for the last, since he
Mm.
said it, it's probably been like 6, 7 years, but I always have it at the back of my mind, you know, whatever that will become. But yeah, goals don't necessarily work for me. For me, it's about direction. So having somewhere that I'm going, like somewhere that I'm, you know, somewhere or something that I'm kind of focusing on. So I think that's how I work, instead of sitting down saying, oh, I want 10K this month, or I want $2,000 this, whatever. It's just a matter of like, okay, you know, how is this action tying into my bigger vision? So for me, it's about like having a bigger vision and that being the direction which I keep moving towards. That's how I work. So I'm not one to kind of sit down and be like, oh, these are my goals this week, blah, blah. But it's kind of like, okay, like being more intentional about, is this action I'm taking, you know, gearing towards the direction that I'm going, which I've already identified. So yeah, that's how I kind of go about it, you know.
Yeah, that's like that's what I've seen to work in my life too. It's like you figure out what you want your life to look like in general. I think that was a big moment for me. Like, but not even necessarily like what I want my career to be even in the future, cuz like for me that hasn't been real either, to just like have one thing of like, oh, I'm going to do this. No, it changes all the time what I'm working on. And I think as an entrepreneur, that just happens as a self-employed person, as an artist. That's just what happens. That's part of the reason why we like being self-employed, right? We want to be able to do what we want to do and have that ebb and flow over time. But like,
Exactly.
yeah, just like you said, there's a trajectory there. There's like an overall goal of like, I want to build this. I want to build communities. I want to build my career as a self-employed person, literally that basic. I want to have I want to have my own businesses or whatever. That has really been the thing for me. And then I would say too, there's like I mean, technically there's like short-term goals for me, like, but it's really just starting and finishing projects. It's like, this is what I want to offer to my audience, to my community. I'm going to build it and create it, and then I'm going to talk about it. And that's basically it. You know, that's basically it. So yeah, I don't know. I guess I really think it could come back to human design on this one, Ide, as much as I'm like unsure about how I feel about human design just in my own life. It's like the specific manifestors really, they can manifest specifically. I want 10K this month. Oh, we got 10K this month. Or it's like they get 10K within like 2 months or like a month and a half, or like it kind of surrounds what they wanted, even if it's not 100% perfect. And that does not happen for me at all. Like, I don't know if this just comes with more experience as well, but there has been no goal that I like really set that I achieved. I achieved like something, but more in like a general realm. Like, I want to start making money in my business. Then I start making money in my business. Even I want to start making big money in my business. Then I make big money in my business, but it comes in like 4 months instead of 2 months, you know? It's way more general for me. You're nodding. Do you notice the same?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I notice the same per se, because I don't think I spend time focusing on how. I see why you do it. I mean, that's what you do. But I don't think I'm kind of like, oh, I wonder how I manifest. But as you're talking, I'm kind of like, oh, okay. Yes. So with what you said about human design, there are different ways that different people, depending on where your arrow points, if the arrow points left, you're a specific manifester. And if your arrow points, are you okay? Okay. And if your arrow points right, you're a non-specific manifestor, which basically means that, you know, as you said, one type needs to be like, okay, I want a red car. They need to be very specific and they'll get it. And then the other is kind of like, oh, I want my life to look like this. You know, I want it to feel like this. I want it to, you know. So yeah, I feel like I'm more the latter. And from what I'm getting from you, you are the latter too. Yeah. Emma's like chucking over there.
Yeah, I'm having a cough. Yeah, so I love what you said about the feeling. I forgot that's the very clear distinction between specific and non-specific manifestor. Well, very clear distinction about the non-specific manifestor. Shoot for the feeling you want to get rather than the actual thing. And we all think generally we all think it has to be, oh, if we're goal oriented, it has to be the actual thing. Like, I want this much money. I want this type of whatever car. Yeah. And I think that's such an easy way to say it. It's the feeling, because even for me, when I have these specific goals, it's never, like I said, it's never been the specific goal, never, never been a dollar amount ever, but it's been the feeling that I've achieved. So the feeling of making money in my own business, the feeling of making a lot of money in my own business, the feeling of like being successful in my business, that I can manifest great. The feeling of making money in my sleep, I mean, that's a more specific one I manifested. I was like, I want to start making money in my sleep. And then and then at a certain point, people were buying, but they weren't buying at night when I was sleeping. And I was like, oh, it'd be cool for someone to buy at night. And then that did happen, you know, at a certain point in time. But I guess it's like the stuff that I have like no pressure around, and the dollar amounts, of course I have pressure around dollar amounts. Of course I do. Like, it's not just something that I can take away immediately. So yeah, it's interesting. Like the big stuff is totally just surrounding the feeling, and it'll come with time. But yeah, I don't, even though I talk a lot about manifestation and I have a course on manifestation, at this point, I don't try to think so much about my goals. I would have told you something way different 3 months ago. But I got really burnt out and frustrated with that. So now I'm in a period where I can't. I don't have the energy for that. I don't have the energy to like, I want this and
Wait,
this
the
and
energy
this.
for, oh, I see. Yeah. I get what you mean. Like, to be specific, right?
Yeah. I don't even have the energy to say that I want anything right now. I think what I want is the same. It's always been the same. Like, I want to make money full time with what I'm doing in whatever I'm doing in entrepreneurship. And that just has been the goal. And because that hasn't come when I wanted it to come, I don't have momentum to say, okay, great, now I want this and this and this specifically. Like, no. So right now I'm just in this place of like, whatever. I'm just going to keep working towards what feels good. And I'm not even thinking about outcome right now. I'm just thinking about how I can live day to day feeling happy enough and fulfilled. That's kind of where I'm at right now.
Yeah. Now that's interesting. And I guess that's why I think it's always good to kind of focus on what's correct for you, and also what works and what doesn't work, and finding your own path. Because, you know, you come across people who are like, hey, this is how you manifest. You need to just believe the thing. You need to not have a doubt, believe it. and you get the thing, right? Whereas some people are like, no, it's about actually taking, okay, so I was listening to Be Magnetic. I know you've been in their field for quite a bit. So there was a podcast episode. I was watching this YouTube video that, you know, kind of referred that particular podcast episode. And it was talking about, you know, manifesting, but their way is like very unique. It's kind of, there was a point where she kind of shared that I think her partner wanted something that costs like $200, and the partner was going to get it because the partner is like, okay, this is a part of my unique money code. I'm wondering if you did the unique money code thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I want to hear about that because you've done it, like how that felt for you. But anyway, yeah, so like part of his unique money code, buying this vase actually, you know, does line up. However, she was like, no, but instead of buying it for $200, manifest it. And so to cut a long story short, you know, he literally went to like a vintage store, another vintage store, and a similar vase was there for like $14, which was gonna obviously bring him the same, you know, feeling and whatnot. Fine, they're calling that manifesting. Another person will call that being, you know, wise about making a good money decision. Do you get what I mean? Because to one person, that's not manifesting because you didn't get the exact thing that you wanted. But to another, that's like making a good financial decision. So for me, I'm kind of like, what is it? You know? But yeah, it was interesting because I was kind of like, you know what, at the end of the day, it's about just making, or is it about making wise money decisions? You know, obviously we hear that we have to, but when do you kind of succumb to, you know, I'm going to deprive myself of XYZ in order to manifest something? I don't know. Because it's kind of like there are things that I love. Like imagine getting to a place where I have to like, be like, oh, I can't get my nails done anymore. For me, that's like, it's my life. It's a part of how I express myself. So for someone to kind of be like, oh, well, maybe you can cut that out. No, I actually don't want to cut that out because that brings me like a lot of, it's like an art expression. It's an art form. So, you know, I was kind of listening to it obviously with openness, but also thinking, oh, okay. So I guess from their perspective, from what I'm hearing, manifesting is really about making wiser decisions, I suppose.
That's interesting. Yeah. And when I hear you say like, what is it? Is it making different decisions, or is it just getting what you want, exactly what you want into your life? And I would like to say we get to decide. I don't know if that's actually true. This is something I haven't figured out in life yet. Like, I don't know if they're like, if it's more the human design way of like, for my personality type, this is what works and this will not work for whatever reason. It like kind of has to be one way or the other, but it depends on the person. And we were just kind of like blessed or cursed with certain like abilities to methods to bring things into our lives, or if we can kind of transform how we manifest over time. I don't know. I would definitely say that it seems like we can perfect our process of manifestation with more experience, and it gets easier over time, and it gets more prolific over time. It gets more frequent over time. So maybe I could get to a place one day where I say I want this exact thing and I get it. Because even now I will say everyone I know who's studied manifestation seriously on a serious, consistent level, little things they can attract exactly into their life. Like I will say sometimes I want a coffee paid for me, and maybe I can't yet be specific about timelines. So maybe that's the thing that I can't be specific with. Like maybe I'll get all these dollar amounts I want. It just hasn't happened yet. So like a coffee, I've manifested several times after thinking, hey, I want a coffee. But I never estimate the time that it comes in, but the coffee comes in. I want espresso and I get espresso. It's the exact thing. Even good quality. I want a good quality espresso. It will be a good quality espresso. So I can manifest specific things into my life, but for me, I guess it's more perhaps the timeline of what's coming through. So the one consistency I've seen is that the more you do manifestation and the more, in a way, you're patient with the process, if it's not coming in right away, the more that you're going to get exactly what you want. That has just been my case. Like my car, that was a huge thing. I was doing TBM work to get the car. Here's the thing, TBM manifestation, it worked. It worked for me. And I'll say a caveat after that, but I got a car that was way better than I could ever imagine. Now, it was better than the car I was trying to manifest. And those are the best manifestations, like when you're like, fuck. I mean, it's this whole dramatic process. And that's kind of why I stopped doing TBM work. I'll talk a little bit more on that in a sec, but the best part, in a way, in the end, it feels really good. I would say overall, it's the most satisfying to just say, I want this thing, and to get that exact thing, because it's a even keeled process. It's just like, it's simple. It's like, I want it, I'll get it. But something else that does happen is sometimes you say, excuse me, I want this thing. I want this exact thing, and it's not coming through. And you're like, oh my God, why can't I get this exact thing? And then what shows up when you like finally take your hands off the wheel and say, oh, whatever, something better shows up. So I got a better quality car that's known to last way longer, and it's a more expensive car. The part that was also kind of, I don't know, not ideal for me is I had to borrow money from my parents to get that nicer car. So I got a way nicer car than I ever imagined, but I had to borrow money from my parents to get that. I didn't really want to do that, but it just had to happen to get a car when I needed a car. So all that being said, it's like right now I'm kind of carrying the hope and kind of seeing the evidence that overall, I think we'll be able to manifest however we want, within reason, in time, when we become like masters at this stuff. And I think something that almost everyone says in the manifestation world is like, how it shows up, do not concern yourself with. Like even the people who can manifest very specific things, how it shows up, they even say, don't worry about how it's going to show up, because when you want the money to come through a specific way, or you want the car to happen in a specific way, that doesn't work. But I think I think eventually it will be possible for us to manifest on a specific level. And then again, I don't know if it'll be more possible to manifest on a specific timeline. But like, I think just some of us, it takes us a little bit longer to master this process. So what do you think, Ide?
I wouldn't say I know much about the manifestation realm in that regard. But obviously in my life and in terms of like, working towards the things that I desire and whatnot, yes, I know and don't concern myself with how it's going to show up, because I think sometimes you're exhausting one way it could show up when it could show up in like another way. And I think something that I learned is kind of like, don't think, for a second that what you're looking for is only going to show up in your business. It could show up in your business. It could show up in something else that you decide to do on the side. It could show up as a gift. It could show up as anything. Just don't concern yourself with that. And so I don't really concern myself with that. I think right now, something that I've been really practicing is like the now moment, like kind of changing my state in the now, because there are times where doubt will kind of creep in and be like, doesn't look like you're getting it. And then kind of reminding myself and being like, it's fine. I am that. And like, I think learning to be that which I want, the person who gets that thing that I'm looking for, and sometimes that looks like, that person has more faith. And so practicing, using the opportunity to practice faith instead of like focusing on when is it coming, each moment, okay, how do I practice faith? How do I practice faith around this thing? So that has been what I'm, I guess, exploring and experimenting with for now.
Cool. Yeah, you mentioned that you were interested in collapsing timelines and quantum leaping when we talked.
I don't know if I want to go into that, but yes, that's something that, I've become interested in,
Are you still pursuing that currently?
I don't think it's a matter of pursuing that per se. I kind of follow where I'm being called right now. And right now, I kind of feel like that's what's exciting me right now. Like something that I'm like, oh, should I say that's something that I've become curious about and I'm open to learning more about. Yeah. I didn't even know where it came from, but it's like all of a sudden that's where, just like when human design popped up and it's like, so that's kind of, where I've been spending majority of my time, curious about it and trying to be like, oh, okay, this is interesting. The people it's worked for and how it's worked for them and stuff like that. So yeah.
Yep. Cool. Yeah, it's interesting. It's a topic that everyone can explore. I would say everyone who is not super satisfied in their lives, right? Like there are people out there who are just really satisfied with what they have and there's not really a goal. It's just like maintaining what they already have. I know a lot of farmers like that. It's just like they just do their thing. But I think everybody else, we can relate to manifestation, whether we want to call it manifestation or not. We have goals, we have things that we want our lives to transform into. We can all relate and see what the common denominators are. I'm going to take a quick picture for Instagram real quick.
Insta.
Yay. All right, cool. Do you want me to talk about my experience with TBM?
Yes. Because I remember you kind of mentioned, I was like, oh, M has actually gone through this.
Yeah. And it was quite a journey with TBM. I have some very specific feedback. That was, TBM taught me that we get what we're worthy of. Well, we get what we feel worthy of, rather. That is, I have never seen, I just think that's the case most of the time. There are some people that say, oh, I received this amazing thing, but I didn't feel worthy of it. But it's like a subconscious thing. It's like, did you see a lot of examples in your life of people receiving something? Did you feel like this wasn't that big of a deal and that's why you got it? Because you're like, whatever, I could get it or not get it. It made me realize that manifestation has a lot to do with subconscious self-worth, the self-worth that's lying in your subconscious brain. So that was huge. And that also taught me that the more I do like therapy and the more I heal, the more I'll get what I want, which I kind of already knew. But it was a way for me to like step into changing the subconscious brain without going to therapy, because I was really, really scared of going to therapy at the time for several reasons. So it was my first encounter with changing my working through my trauma in a structured way that wasn't just journaling. So they have these hypnosis meditations that you do to change your subconscious brain, which was really cool, really fun. It's a great step-by-step process for people who are like, I don't get all this random spiritual jargon. It's not adding up. Like, what is the formula to manifest? It's not just, well, you have to do this. TBM is a very specific, very structured formula to get what you want when it feels like all the new age spiritual stuff is not working for you. That's why Lacy Phillips created it, because she was like, I just got into debt with all this spiritual stuff of like, spend like your future self. And she's like, it wasn't helping me. So this is the way. So I think it's a great service. For my personality type, what I found was, there's a lot about how the universe is testing you. So another part of manifesting what you want in the TBM world is not settling, which I also can see as a component in people's lives. It's kind of a consistency I see in people's lives when they're getting what they want. Part of having self-worth is being like, I'm going to say no to this. I'm going to say no to that. I deserve better than this. Admitting that you deserve better, believing that you deserve better, which I see. But the process of TBM is like, you get faced with a decision to make and you have to decide if it's a test and you should say no, or if it's not a test and you should say yes. And the whole process that's to be expected in this TBM world is like, you're going to get, if you don't feel very worthy of something and it feels like a big goal for you, you're going to get a whole lot of tests that you have to say no to until finally you're in this place where like everything goes quiet. You've said no to all the tests and everything's quiet. You're not getting any more tests. And maybe like your bank account is running out and things are getting stressful. And then your manifestation will come through if you go through that period of time. So that's kind of like one last big test of like, okay, all your money's running out. It's coming down to the wire. It's like a movie, it's coming down to the wire. All right. If you withstand this time and stay in your worth, then you'll get what you want. That process was torturous for me because I'm already an overthinker. So every fucking decision that I had to make in my life was like, is this a test or not? Let me try to figure this out. It was horrible, Ida. It was horrible. I got results with the TBM work. During that time, I was able to manifest better health and I was able to manifest my car and a whole bunch of jobs, but I was miserable. I was like so depressed. I did not get the point of life anymore because it was so depressing. So to me, it wasn't worth it. And I think, it's just like all coaching programs who have people in them that say, hey, this isn't working for me. I think Lacy, if I were to be like, hey, this isn't working, she'd be like, oh, well, you need to just like let go of being so obsessed with this or that, or you just need to do this, or you just need to like do that. But I didn't even want, at the end of the day, it was like, I didn't want to go through my life wondering if things are tests or not. I just wanted to fucking, it was just so dramatic for me. I want to like, at the end of the day, it didn't become, it just wasn't as important to get what I want as it was to like want to live my life in a way that feels good to me. So like, it didn't feel good to me to be obsessed with, is it a test or not? Am I in my worth or not? I've heard, it's interesting. I've even heard, TBM practitioners who are leaving the TBM world, they would come on one of their podcasts. I'm just thinking about this one guy. I forget his name, but he was like the only male TBM coach. I don't believe is coaching for them anymore. And he had a like final farewell podcast that he was on. And he said, where I'm at in my process right now is not even wondering if something is a test or not, and not caring if it's a test. It's, do I want to have this experience or not? And that's how I decide. And it kind of comes full circle. It goes back to kind of what we should be, what I feel like we should be doing in the first place and how we look at life in the first place. I have a decision to make. What do I want to do? It's not like what I should do for the TBM work. What would make me embody a more self-worth person, it was, for me, it was, do I want to have this experience or not? And I just enjoy going through life so much better. What's the point of getting what I want if I'm not even enjoying my day-to-day life? So for me, I realized too that even if I just said no on principle, because I said, oh, it's maybe a test, I should just say no, that didn't help me get my thing. Because I noticed actually that when I was getting my jobs and when I was getting my car, I wasn't saying no to tests. I was just like, I need this job and I need this fucking car. So I'm just gonna, like, in a way, it was kind of the opposite. It was like, I'm going to just take what I can get. So in this case, I ended up with a better car, but I had to, like, get help from my parents. And with my jobs, it was like, I got all these jobs that I wanted, but I wasn't, like, saying no still because I couldn't. I had to pay my bills at a certain point. It was that time. It was so dependent on time. So, like, I just realized, yeah, I did get what I want during that time, but like I always wanted a romantic partner, all these, and I wasn't able to manifest that. And that was really when I was saying a lot of, like, no, just no to people. Cause I was like, oh, they don't seem perfect. So no, I wasn't, I realized that for me, I couldn't fake self-worth. I couldn't fake, being this person, kind of like what you're saying, Ida. Like, for me, it hasn't felt like I could fake. I could just, like, force it to happen. It's like I have to go through what I need to go through in order to be ready to give my responses in full self-worth. But in the meantime, it feels best for me to just say yes or no, depending on what sounds good to me. Even if it's a test and I get burned, because that's the thing. It's like running into the fire. That's what they call it. You can run into the fire and get burned. Eventually, you're going to get burned enough where you stop doing it. Okay. One sec, guys.
Sorry, my alarm just started going off. And it was so loud. I'm like, I gotta turn this off. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's so interesting. But as you're talking, I think everyone just, man, I had a beautiful thing when the podcast I sent you between P the Fairy and Flex Mommy. And she said, you know what? Whenever you ask people, what would you do if, you knew you couldn't fail, and you had everything you wanted? People come up with, like, incredible things. She's like, that's your blueprint. That's literally your blueprint. Follow that. And so as you were talking, I'm kind of thinking of how, because for me, it's not about, and I know this is not what you were saying, but I'm kind of thinking of what relationship I have with my process. And for me, it's not about, and I think we've even spoken about this, it's not about being tested or not, because I don't believe that. I think that's what we spoke about, the $1 million decisions. It's the same thing. You want $1 million? Okay, does this decision feel like a decision a millionaire will make or not? And I feel like that. It's such a simple thing, because it's kind of like, if you're really struggling and there's no money, what would the millionaire do? The millionaire will come up with other ideas, find a solution. Like, I feel like that's a millionaire decision. Find a solution, whatever that solution is. I don't feel like the millionaire will, like, be in victim's mindset and be like, oh, I can't believe this is happening. Obviously, at one point, you get to cry about it. But I don't think the millionaire is going to, like, wallow in that moment and be like, oh, what about me? It isn't fair. Life is not being fair to me. So I think that's where you have the opportunity to rise up and be that which you asked for. So as you were talking, I was kind of thinking, for instance, if someone's decided, or if I've decided I want to be a happier person, and I'm presented with two decisions. Okay, a friend is asking me to go and eat, sushi. I love sushi, by the way, but just for the sake of this, a friend is asking me, hey, come with me to go eat sushi. And another friend is like, oh, come with me to go, what else? What thing? Come with me to go insects, go look at insects or whatever. I don't know. Which one do I want? Which one's going to bring me more happiness? I want to be happier. Let's go eat sushi, But if I had said, I want to become a more curious person, more adventurous, guess what? I'll pick insects, So it's not rocket science. I think sometimes we just complicate it. It's really not rocket science. And I feel like we always have two decisions, left or right. Yes. And I know a lot of people will be like, life is not about binary. I think, it actually is. I kind of feel like sometimes we want to delude ourselves into thinking that life is not what it actually is. Like when you look at life, night and day. There's no in between, light or dark. Like there's not many things in life that has in betweens, but I kind of feel like we've somewhat putting these in betweens to like complicate it and make it's simple. You have two choices. Where are you going? Where do you want to go? Sometimes maybe you can't make the decision there and then. You get to be like, what, let me think about this. Let me reflect on it. You go away, you reflect on it. You still got to make the same decision. Do you want to do A or B? I feel like even in a nail salon, sometimes when I go and I've got like thousands of colors to pick from, really and truly, like, do I actually have many colors to pick from? No, because at the end of the day, there are different shades of pink, different shades of red, different shades of green. It's like just different shades. So it's like, what do I want? Do I want red, blue, green, or pink, or orange? What do I want? Like, let's not complicate it. Let me not go and be like, oh my God, let me go through all the 100 colors first. It's like, yes, there are 100 colors, but if we really bring it down, there are 100 shades of orange. What do you want? Do you want orange? Like, at least start from somewhere, What do you feel like today? Orange nails or pink nails or blue nails? Let's not confuse ourselves. And then you get to go through the blue shades and then decide, okay, out of these blue shades, which one stands out to me? There's, the funny thing, and this just flashed to me right now as I'm like, blabbing on. It's like something always stands out. Why don't we just go with that? Like literally, whenever you have to make a choice, I feel like one choice always stands out. But sometimes we're still like, oh, I'm not sure. Let me come back. And we come back to the same thing. Most of the times, for instance, even when I'm, about to do a design for like our page or whatever, I'll go through an image will stand out to me. And I'm like, ooh, that image is nice. But I'm like, oh, I wonder what else is there. I'll go. Guess what? After 1 hour, I'll come back to the same image. And I feel like, let me speak for myself, but there's a part of me that thinks that happens to most people as well, where we don't always go with our original choice. We go around and it always comes back to square one. I look at when I was in Letitia's program, what I wanted to do was help people get to know themselves better. I keep going back to that. There's no point deterring from that and trying something else. I'm gonna come back to it. It doesn't mean don't try something else, but try something within your original choice. Don't deviate. You're gonna come back to it. You're gonna keep coming back, unless that's only my experience. I don't know, but yeah. Emma's just like
I think it's a great point. I think that embodying that, I think it goes hand in hand with the millionaire decisions. Like for me, when decision making, embodying the spirit of what a millionaire would do has given me a lot more confidence, which has helped me a lot in my life. But I think it's really important to note some moments where I didn't feel like this black and white thinking or the millionaire, what would a millionaire do, has not helped me. I feel like some very big moments in my life has not been helped by either of those things. Interestingly enough, it's a very literal example because we may remember, those of you who've been listening to this podcast, back in the fall when we started this thing, I was like, oh my God, I'm really being faced with some financial challenges. I have a lot of expenses right now. I can't keep up with it and I don't know what to do. And Ida gave me some really helpful advice in that moment. What would a millionaire do? And that helped me with my confidence to like not fully quit, which is huge, right? That can be everything. But at the end of the day, I think it's just all this stuff, I just feel like it's how your brain works, what your patterning is, what is like helpful to you and what isn't. I think it just really depends on the person. Like I think it just goes back to this idea that there isn't a magic solution for everybody. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And we want it to be simple. And sometimes it gets to be simple, which is great. And sometimes we find out that like the answer actually is simple, which is awesome. But sometimes it's just from where your mind is at, it's not the simple answer. It's something that's like really undescribable. So like, let's use a very explicit example. When I was feeling like, oh my God, there's like nothing in my bank account and I have to run a business here. What do I do? And you were like, you said, what would a millionaire do? So for me, back in that moment, I was like, oh, a millionaire will like write grants or take out a bigger loan, or like a millionaire isn't going to go get like a small paying job. I think this was actually, what am I saying? It wasn't fall, it was January when we were talking, January or December. And really what happened, this also can go back to like TBM work too. Really what happened was me just not paying my bills because I was like, so I'm not saying this is like the right way to do things or anything. This is just what happened to me after we had talked about what would a millionaire do. This is just what happened in my life. So I didn't get another job and I just didn't pay my bills. And like, luckily it was really cool to see all of these providers be really cool with me. Like, okay, that's okay. You need a little bit more time. We'll give you more time. That was great. But it didn't solve my problems and the money still didn't come in during that time. So what I ended up doing was borrowing more money from my parents. The number one thing I did not want to do, because I was at the end of the day, I was like so overwhelmed with stress of like, the bills have to get paid. I can't just keep pushing it off and pushing it off. It's clearly, I was making more money beforehand. Now I'm making nothing, like it's clearly not helping my process. So I did the exact thing that I didn't want to do, that didn't feel like self-worth, that also didn't feel like a millionaire decision. Now, of course, there are millionaires that built their career from like borrowing from family members.
Exactly.
And though, of course, there are millionaires who have built their business from having low-paying jobs, from getting a second job, from getting a side job. There are examples of both. We can look up a bunch of famous people that have done both things, and we probably could look up people that I know. Michael Blackson, the comedian. He like he has, I don't want to simplify him down to this. He has a really cool career, he's worked really, really, really fucking hard. But there was a moment where he needed to get his car fixed. It was right before he like kind of took off. He needed to get his car fixed. He had no money and he just like drove up, like they fixed his car and he just drove off, So there are people that did some stuff that I don't know if I would ever be able to do in order to become a millionaire. So in my mind, looking back on all this, I'm like, didn't I just do what any normal human would do? Like, it wasn't even like millionaire decisions or not. It was like, I had a bunch of decisions in front of me and millionaires have made all of these decisions and become a millionaire. So to me, it was like kind of no difference at the end of the day. I made the decisions I made just like anybody else, millionaire or not. But what having a millionaire mindset gave me was like the confidence to keep going and not quit. So again, I just, in my mind, it just feels like it goes back to this idea of like, fuck the goals, fuck the specific goals, fuck like being a certain, I mean, in my mind, fuck like, you know, making certain decisions because that's what the person would do. And I know that works for some people, but it didn't work for me in one of the biggest issues I've had since I started my business very recently. So it didn't feel like it worked. And it brought me a lot of like, why am I not in a context that a millionaire would be in? You know, like why is it not working? Why am I not feeling like a millionaire? And I realized any decision I would have made would have been possibly a millionaire decision. And at the end of the day, it's like I just had to make this decision that I was available for. And then also I'll say something about black and white thinking, and then I want to hear what Ida has to say. For me, a lot like certain things are very black and white. Do I want to do this or not is black and white. Like, you know, the whole sacrifice thing, how I handle that, I do everything I want to do. So if I want to achieve a specific result, and this is just the way that I know to get there, I'm going to want to do that and make a decision. It's very black and white. Do I want it or not? I can't be in between in that context. But there are a lot of other contexts where, for me, super simplifying it down, it just is not possible for me because of what's going on in my head. So for the car, it wasn't as simple as, well, there's this type of car, you decide. There's like, well, there's this type of car, you could borrow from your parents and do this type of car, or you can get a loan and do this type of car. Well, if I get this type of car, I would have these type of challenges, or I would be unhappy because of this. So it's like, it's also, sometimes it just feels to me like I have to weigh things, and it's not clear at all, because each decision has to deal with like, has like circumstances where I have to deal with certain, I have to like kind of weigh the push and pull of each decision, where there's this, but there's this, there's this, but there's this, there's this, but there's this. So I have to decide which one is like the least, the most beneficial to me. And to me, that has just never been, well, it's this or it's this, for certain scenarios. But it's, again, it's like the overall spirit of, well, let me just decide. You know, I think I think what you just said has been so right in my life many times, of like, I think it's a big thing that we should talk about in this world. Like, usually we have something that we want initially, and we can just go with that and go for that, and not try to talk ourselves out of what we want. But like in the car situation, if I did that, I would still be waiting for a Ford Bronco right now. You know what I'm saying? I had to be like, well, maybe it actually is more complicated, and like maybe there are these other options here, and maybe I just need to like let my guard down and like make a decision that annoys me, but in the end will give me a better result than I ever could have imagined. So I think that ties into the whole, sometimes it's not simple, because like the answer I'm giving you is not simple. It's not like a here's this or here's this. It's like it was this whole process of like, well, I don't really feel like this is a great decision for me, but I also just feel like it will lead me a better result. So I guess I'm just going to go for it. It was very unclear. I was like, I don't know if I'm screwing myself over by borrowing from my parents. It sounds like the last thing that I want to do, but I do want that car more than the feeling I get of, you know, being independent. So like at the end of the day, it's a decision. So I had to make a straight yes or no, but the way to get there was so complicated. And when I tried to just make it simple, like this is what I want, I'm going to get what I want, it just was not happening. It wasn't coming through. So this is my approach to it, and I'm very aware that it's just how my brain works in the moment. It's just not something I can force on myself. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on this.
Yeah, I think it doesn't mean I've mastered it, but I think life is all about getting to crossroads and deciding, do I go left, right, or stop? Because going left comes with consequences, going right comes with consequences, stopping comes with consequences. It's all a risk. Which risk are you willing to take? So I feel like in that regard, life is that simple. I really think it's that simple. And it's a matter of, okay, I'll come back to that. I really do believe it's that simple. Now, mastering that simplicity is another thing, because what I've come to find out whenever I listen to older people, the older you get, the faster you decide, because as you're getting older, it becomes clearer who you are, what you want. And so you don't waste time on going, no, because you don't have time to waste thinking, oh, I wonder if. It's like, you know what? Boom, that feels good. So for me right now, in this moment right now, I'm realizing that I think it's about deciding faster, mastering how to decide faster, because it's all a risk, period. Which risk, do you want to go with right now? And I feel like that's what it is, because I feel like the older we get, we're going to realize that, oh, it's actually that simple. We're not going to be spending too long on trying to make all these decisions, because it's like we get to a place where we realize that, you know what, that's what I want. And we can actually trust in that. Because I kind of feel like right now it's kind of like learning to ride a bike. We still have the extra 2 tires on for support. And the extra 2 tires are what's like ahhing and arming about it. But we do get to a point where we take the supporting tires off and just like go. That's just what I think. I think it's about getting to a place where we decide faster of who we are and who we know we are, and our intuition, like just trusting our intuition to actually go with the first thing, because it's all a risk. Yeah, that's just what I really think. I really think it's that simple. If we were just letting our intuition lead, period. But I also understand that it's not that simple yet, because we don't fully trust in our intuition. Therefore, it's a matter of like mastering the process of deciding faster based off of our intuition. That's what I think.
I agree with that. That is evidence
when we agree on
as much kind of not tension, but as challenging as it can be. I love when we disagree, because I think, during podcast episodes, I notice that the guests or the host tends to agree with the guest always, that not in maybe bigger episodes, like Joe Rogan will disagree. The people that have a lot of confidence and a lot of power in the world won't sometimes, which is great. But I think a lot of like the podcasts that are kind of from smaller scale entrepreneurs, they tend to just say like, yeah, I totally agree. And it becomes such a boring conversation. I'm like, what does everyone actually think here? Like, so I love that we can disagree, but it does feel very good and very settling. I agree when we can come to a place where like, yeah, this seems like some level of truth here, that we both have seen evidence of in our lives. I agree with that 100%. Now, here's the portion that I'd like to add to the conversation, which I'm realizing now is the portion that got me to want to talk about how that didn't feel true to me in the moment. And what I'm hearing you say is like, well, it's more complicated. It could be simpler. It's not like it boils down to something simple, and it just didn't like feel like that in the moment, because it was a lot more drawn out, because you were like, like you said, you're hemming and hawing about it. I don't know, which was exactly my experience. But would you say that we can kind of, I would say force, if I'm being biased right now, I would say force, but another word could be like, would you say that we could save ourselves time by intentionally changing this narrative of, oh, this decision has to be hard? Like, that's kind of where the coaching element comes into it, right? Would you say, because coaches want to tell us, this is going to be this is the typical trajectory of what your life is going to look like, but I can help save you time to do everything faster if you work with me, because that's why I'm here with you, because I get to work with you and I get to share my process with you, which will help to shift your journey in some way. What I have started to realize is I'm not sure if anyone can, my therapist has seemed to have shifted my journey, but again, it's like timelines. I don't know. I haven't seen the evidence of like, ooh, once I started working with this person, life got so much easier. Even my therapist, no, life has not become easier, but let's see, how do I say this? Life has become easier. Yes. I will say life has become easier. The times in which I receive what I want seems totally random still. Even with therapy, even though the way I'm relating to life seems easier, I'm getting more, coaching perhaps has given me more confidence to like be able to make decisions a little faster. But I think there's this, when we hear people say, here is like a secret to life, or we think we're hearing that. When we hear people say, like Ida, when I'm hearing you say, really, it can be just a lot more simple than we're making it. Something in my brain says, okay, that's a secret to life. Like, well, it's that simple. What would a millionaire do? I'm like, okay, that's a secret to life. Ida never said that she has a secret to life for me, right? Ida just said, it could be this simple, this or that. What would a millionaire do? Go. But in my mind, the way I interpret that is that's a secret to life. That's going to help me speed up my process or make me have an easier human experience. And even though Ida told me that at the beginning of this challenge I had at the beginning of the year, it was a pretty horrific experience for me. And at the end of the day, looking back on it, I still feel like I would have made a decision just like anybody. At the end of the day, I was just faced with the one decision I didn't want to make that didn't feel like a millionaire decision in the moment. But it was still helpful because embodying the millionaire allowed me to not quit, which is everything, right? But it still felt like life. It still felt like I'm a human and this is life. It didn't feel like a gateway. It didn't feel like a shortcut. And I think we're being promised shortcuts a lot. Never promised me a shortcut, but I think we want to hear shortcuts. We're interpreting as shortcuts. And I think there are some coaches out here that are telling us that it's a shortcut. I don't know in the end if it's a fucking shortcut. Therapy as well. It's like life feels better to me, which is everything, but I don't feel like I've received shortcuts to any of the challenges in my life yet. So Ida, what do you think about this?
I actually think, when you start and you're like, wow, this is the secret to life. I actually think it is that, when I hear, people, okay, let me go to this. If you talk to 10 millionaires, they will all tell you the same thing. Why? Because it's a skill they had to learn. However, when they learn that skill, they tailored it to them. I think that's where the mistake is. When we hear something, like for instance, when we heard decide, embody a millionaire, what would a millionaire do? Then I feel like that's when we take that information, we go back and we're like, okay, for me, Emily, a millionaire decision looks like this, because what would a millionaire do? A millionaire will basically, find solutions instead of more problems. That's it. That's all a millionaire would do. Find solutions. So already you're one step ahead. The secret is find solution. Instead of me thinking, oh my God, this is such a problem. I don't have a car. Now I'm in debt. That's focusing on more problems. But a millionaire's not going to focus on problems, they will find solution. So I feel like that's like the first step where you're like, okay, the millionaire decision you needed to make was to shift from focusing on problems to solution, which you did. Yes, the solution you came up with to you didn't feel good in that moment, but you did the best. You came up with the best solution you could in that moment. You didn't continue to focus on problems.
Okay, so here's where I have to interject, because in order to be a human and live, I had to make a choice just like everybody else. So like, to me, I'm curious, I'm still open to what you have to say, but to me, it didn't feel like, there was no way it could have felt like a millionaire decision in that moment. And it just felt like it literally, it very, very much literally came down to, if I want to eat, I need to make a decision. If I want to live, I need to make a decision. So it was die for real. Like this is so crazy.
You know how difficult that is for people to do. So for you, that step alone was the millionaire decision. That's what I'm trying to get. And not many people get to a place, there aren't many people in life actually who get to a tough situation like you did and actually decide, you know what, I need to make a choice right now. No, most of them continue to focus on the problem by saying, oh my God, I can't believe life keeps happening to me. This is so difficult. And then they sink deeper, fall into a depressive mode, and just keep sinking deeper, sinking deeper. Some people go that route where they continue, they just don't find, there's no hope. They don't find any other solution. So I think for you, you're trivializing the fact that you made a decision, thinking every human being actually does. And I don't think every human being gets to that position you were and just decides, you know what, I've got to eat. I need to choose now. And I know in your mind, you're like, of course we all do. No, I don't think we all do, because some of us actually, don't see any hope. There's no solution available. And so we just fall into this like depression and it just goes downhill from there. Not a lot of people actually have the ability or the capability to be able to say, you know what, right now I need to eat. I'm going to focus on eating. And if that means going to my parents, the very thing I didn't want to do, I'm going to do that. That's such a courageous, like strong decision that you made, because you could have refused that and you could have continued focusing on the problem. Who knows where you'd be right now? It could be where you've quit your business, you've fallen into like this, depressive mode where it's like, you're trying to pull yourself out, but still, I'm still not saying that I'm like, this is the end or be all, but I don't feel like, I think I think you don't see what you did in that. I think you think it's such a thing that is available. No, it's not. And I think it comes with like a lot of personal development to actually get to that point and be like, you know what, I need to do this next. Some people they can't even make they don't have the ability to say, I need to do this next. It's like they're crippled by either fear, they're crippled by the decision. A lot of people can't even bring themselves to make a decision. So for me, it's such a huge thing, but talks about it like, come on, everyone can do it. No, your personal development allowed you to be able to do that. Seriously.
Yeah. Wow, that's pretty interesting. This is we're getting into such an interesting place, and I'm getting emotional because this is so fresh. You're showing me another side to it.
No, it's growth. It's growth. To get, like, seriously, think back before you got to where you were you making these kinds of decisions? What decisions? Someone would have turned to alcohol to numb the pain, to numb the frustration, to numb that. You could have turned to alcohol. You could have turned to eating. You could have turned to there were so many things you could have turned to. And unfortunately, and this is why we want to do this job, because we've been able to get to a place where we no longer reach out for these, coping mechanisms. We face it head on. We continue to face it. And facing it, is not something everyone can do. I wish we could all do it. I really wish. And that's why I feel like we do this, because we know what it means to actually, that's the beauty in it. And this is what I want to teach people. This is something I think I keep telling you. I'm like, I'm actually very stable emotionally. I wasn't always like that. To get to a point, if I tell you what's going in my life right now, the fact that I'm not crushing, I'm even like, wow, Ida, how are you doing this?
Wow.
Like, the things that are, and for me, sometimes I don't share that part, because I like to, when I'm moving through something, I like to get the lesson for myself, not everything, but certain things. And this, especially where I am in my life right now, it's like I think some of what I'm going through. It's like I'm hit here, I'm hit there, I'm here, and I still have so much in me to still start a free group to hype them up, to still show up here. We can't take that, like, we can't. So I think for me, why I'm this passionate is like, when I was hearing you, it's like, you think it's this easy thing. No, it's not. The fact that you didn't break and you're still here, continuing, no, it's not like ordinary. It isn't. It isn't normal. It really isn't. It goes to show how much you've grown. It goes to show that you actually made a millionaire's decision. You did. You really did, Anyway.
Oh my God. This is like, our conversations get so profound. It's crazy, Ida. I'm going to send you a note about it later, because I can say it now, but I feel like it's more personal to our friendship, but like, I don't know where I would be without like you in my life. It's pretty amazing that we were able to come together in this life, and at certain very specific times in our career, and this podcast and like our relationship together just means so much to me. Like, this is just a huge, your support is just huge. It just goes back to, this whole thing of that we're both realizing we need community in our lives. We need people in our lives that care and that will say these things to us, like a lot of people don't have people in their lives that say these things to us. And I like that we're actually both in our journeys with our businesses, giving people opportunity to find people like you and like us, and who want to encourage each other. So it just is everything. This is everything for us to sit here and for me to hear you say that is crazy. Yeah. And you're right. You're right. It's so interesting to see like how it just all depends on what I know, how I know to look at something, it just goes to say like how much interacting with people and continuing on my continuing education journey, that's really what helps me to look at things differently. Because in the moment, in my mind, if it's just me talking to myself, I can't like force myself to look at something differently. Like sometimes it's just impossible. Sometimes that's possible. And sometimes I just don't have enough knowledge. Like I feel like you've now just taught me about how I can look at something, right? I didn't know that I could look at it like that until we had that conversation, right? It wasn't an internal dialogue wouldn't have necessarily helped. I needed connection in order to be able to look at the whole scenario differently, which is cool. It's like similar in a way. It's similar. When you say something out loud to me and get me to kind of reflect it back to you, that's how you can see it differently. but it doesn't happen when you're just in your head all the time. It wouldn't have happened. Like the connection is just everything. Yeah, I think the way that
Oh no.
What?
It did cut out for me, so I'm glad that you got to continue.
Yeah, it says my internet connection is unstable. So there's a way of looking at this scenario that I just brought up to you guys as, the whole financial issue. There's one way that I'm looking at it, this like everybody, that's all everybody is doing all the time, Ida. How can I survive best in this moment? How can I eat? That's why some people, they make the decision to go to prostitution because they're like, I need to survive. Some people stay married because they're like, I need to survive, when they don't want to stay married. Some people ask for money from a friend. Some people go and get a job because at the end of the day, it does, like you say, it boils down to, that's all we're trying to do, survive. So either we die in one way or another, or we choose to survive. So like, I feel like most people are on this survival level of like, I need to make a decision because I have to eat, or I have to survive in my work community. So I have to make this emotional decision, this social decision. I have to survive. So there's that. I just feel like that's the very human part of this. We're all just trying to survive. There's no one that the people that just give up and say, I'm not doing this anymore. Those are people that take their own lives, right? Or like, it's a whole topic, but like literally that's the thing. It's like you die or you make decisions to still try to survive. So like, that's how I was looking at it. Like, I'm just doing what everyone else does. Like I wasn't going to eat and I was like scared about, not being able to feed myself or pay my bills. So eventually I asked my parents for money to survive. But there is another way of looking at it. And it's interesting. I'm connecting these two things. Like, I'm saying the millionaire decision part was the part where I didn't quit and give up on my business. And you're saying, well, that's actually the part that does differentiate you from what the normal person would do. Like, so I knew that if I took a job, and I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but I knew that if I took a job, I would not have energy to work on my business because it's happened before. It's happened for about 6 months. Couldn't work on my business because I'm so exhausted with this job I hate. So in order to keep my business going at the level that I had it, it was ask your parents for money instead of get a job. Even though so many people would be like, that is such a selfish decision, blah, blah, blah. Because it was most important for me to still do what I love and be able to keep my business up. Because I just can't compute, like I'm helping more people through my business rather than working at a health food store, which is an example we've used before. I know that I can make bigger changes in people's lives by doing what I do. So to me, it serves the world as well for me to borrow from my parents, take money from my parents. But you're saying that's actually the part that is the millionaire decision. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah. But yeah, I feel like it's a natural place to like
to end.
Yeah, after I pour my heart out, it's like I gave my all. So right now, everything I say would just be like, just blabbing on.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm glad that we got to explore this. And I do hope that it helps other people shift their perspective as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I think to close us down here, I think it's important that we talk about the whole picture, like I'm just noticing all these ties in the coaching world around like you're saying, here's what will help. And then it kind of gets left at that. It's not, here's what will help. And you might feel like this, and then you might feel like that. But here's how you can look at all of that. And I feel like that's what we need to focus on. What's the whole picture? What's the whole human experience? Not just, hey, this is the helpful part. Hey, this is how life can be. It's what has helped me. Hey, this is how life can be. And if you feel like this, what about this? And if you feel like this, how about this? That to me is a self-development process. If I just see that there could be a solution, but it doesn't feel like I'm embodying the solution, that's when I feel like it's not working for me and I quit. So I think this troubleshooting thing that we're creating with this podcast, it makes it very profound what we're doing here, because how many times are we seeing the whole story about what's going on in somebody's life? Not very often. And how we're getting through it in real time. So, okay, you guys, we're going to close down. I have some editing work to do. And thanks for joining us here. We love you guys so much. Yep, we're so happy. We'll be all up on the podcast platforms. You'll be able to see this replay in YouTube, on our YouTube. All the info is in the show notes. We love you guys.
Yeah.
Yay. Okay, let's stop.
Those are the show notes, by the way. I was taking it as we were going.
Okay.